Okay, Brad, thanks for taking the time to be with everyone today and sharing some of your insight. For anyone that's not already familiar with who you are and what you do, can you give us a little introduction and let us know what you're going to talk about today?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Brad Lee. I am the founder and CEO of Lightspeed VT. It's a web-based interactive virtual training solutions company. And I'm going to talk about anything you want today.
So as you told us before the interview, your handle is The Real Bradley, and I know from reading your material and watching some of your videos that you think it's really important, especially today, to be genuine as a business person, as a real person, because to your point, somehow you're going to find out eventually between social media interviews, whatever. What's the value in being genuine, and why do you think that's so important to connect with your audience?
Well, I mean, yeah, because, amongst many qualities that are valuable, authenticity and keeping it real is a way to create longevity, because if you were to be kind of fake or pose or present yourself in such a way that isn't real, it's only a matter of time before someone discovers that and or exposes that, and next thing you know, your business crumbles because you built it on a false facade. So like me, if someone doesn't like me, I don't want to find out after we're in an agreement together. If you don't like me up front, then, let's not do business. If you meet me up front and want to do business with me and 3 months later it was all fake, and now all of a sudden you hear me, say, drop a word you don't like or have a philosophy you don't like, now we're in a bad situation. So you got to keep it real.
How real do you think we need to get? I don't know if you're familiar with Donald Miller, but he does StoryBrand. He's a marketing guy, and one of his books he talks about how almost getting to the point of vulnerability is where you really connect with people, because he says a lot of us, we reach situations in our life that we think people won't appreciate, or we need to hide, and we put up masks, and little by little we almost become unable to connect with people. Do you think you get to that point, or do you think you hold at least some of it back, but you're just genuine with your personality?
No, I mean, I don't hold anything back. I mean, obviously, using some common sense and business acumen, you don't go too far, but I say keep it real. I mean, and not only that, but vulnerability sells. I mean, I do these shows on Facebook Live from my fan page. I do these things called The Bottom Lines with different guests, Damon John, different celebrities that use the VT system and brands that come in. And a couple of times, it really got vulnerable. A couple people started crying. I mean, people love that. They connect with that. People want authenticity these days.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And I think that's a great point. I just was wondering if you thought that too, or if you were just like, hey, go out there. So another thing you're big on, and it gets into your story a little bit, why do you think it's important to believe that anything's possible as a business owner?
Is it important to believe that?
Yeah, why do you have to keep that mentality? Why do you think that's important for your success?
Well, A, anything is possible, and B, because if you don't believe that, you're limiting your abilities to succeed. You're limiting your ability to expand. Anything is possible. I mean, it's, a lot of people want to try and, come up with something smart-assy like, well, you can't fly. Well, yes, you can. Have you heard of Orville and Wilbur Wright before?
So how do you think, that's a really good point. In modern society, there are a lot of constraints, and a lot of people will sit there and tell you that anything is not in fact possible, or, especially I think with entrepreneurs, if you get out there and you're not from a family of business owners or entrepreneurs, and you go out and say, I have this idea and I'm going to get it done, you're going to have a lot of naysayers and a lot of people holding you back. How do you keep that anything is possible mentality, in those kind of situations?
Well, I mean, I think my experience in life has proven it to me. I mean, I dropped out of high school in 11th grade, went to LA to be a movie star, landed a starring role in a movie. 3 days before production, the producer's son got the part instead of me. A little bit of nepotism there, but went through life just seeing things that were impossible happen. I mean, anything is possible, and I believe it because I've seen it. And I think anybody else has seen it too. They may not be paying attention. So again, I mean, if you have any other belief other than that, you're limiting yourself, and that's most people's problem. Most people limit themselves. There's a lot of companies that go in and they work off budgets. It sounds crazy, but like, I don't operate off of a budget because I believe budgets are basically limits. Like, why would you go in and plan your limits for the year? Yeah. So, but again, I mean, a Harvard graduate in business would say, I won't be in business. Well, again, I am in business. Our business is exploding. I was doing it 17 years ago when there wasn't any online learning. It wasn't even heard of. You barely had a cell phone back then. And, everyone said this wouldn't work. Well, again, here we are, working like a son of a gun. So anything's possible.
I think that leads to another really good question. It took you 14 years, I think it said, to develop your current platform and company. How did you stay motivated for 14 years while you were building this?
It didn't take me 14 years to develop it. It took me 14 years to catch up to time. So, like, we were ahead of our time. And as I was out there knocking on doors for the first 14 years, internet, just remember back when people didn't want websites. Nowadays, if you don't have a website, and a good looking website, you're not even real. And I don't care how real you are, you're perceived as fake, cheap, broke, out of business, not good, not credible if your website doesn't represent you well. I remember when I was selling websites way back in the day, and people were like, we don't need one, we don't want one. Well, guess what? That changed, didn't it? So it took us 14 years to catch up. I mean, we were ahead of our time. So a lot of the heartache and pain and challenges that I went through, I just believed that in 90 days, everything would be different. I still believe that. I was just having a meeting with some of my staff. I said, man, in 90 days, it's going to be night and day. So just literally, I didn't try to think too far ahead. Just go 90 days. If you can, focus for 90 days, it's a lot easier. Next thing you know, it's been 15 years, 90 days at a time. I want to write a book one day called How to Get Anything You Want in 90 Days, and the days will be spelled D-A-Z-E. Because you just get in a daze and look down and work for 90 days. And then you look up, and if you haven't attained what it is you set out to do, look back down and repeat that step. And in one of those 90-day cycles, you'll look up and find success. Well, it could have been 13 90-day cycles to get it, but it's still within that 90 days. So how do you get anything you want in 90 days? There you go.
That's a smart plan. I think in 90 days is a period that's realistic for people to look at setting goals and keep up with this. Is that why you picked 90 days, or did someone help you pick that, or where'd that come from?
Just belief. I figured when I started my company, it would be about 90 days before I made my first million.
Okay. That's very reasonable, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and in 90 days, I didn't have my first million. Didn't even have my first customer. So guess what? I talked to a lot of people. A lot of people were getting ready to call me back and say yes. So, man, all I need now is 90 more days.
That's perfect.
And that just kept going. It was again, like, it seems like it was a year ago I started my company. But if you ask me right now, how are things going? Things are going incredible. But in 90 days, it'll be twice as good as it is now.
That's a great outlook. I think you touched on something else that's really important too. Being first sometimes is really difficult. A lot of times being second or third of the market obviously is easier because someone laid the path for you. So for someone out there that's got a really good idea and they're struggling against being ahead of their time like you were, what kind of lessons did you learn that maybe would help them?
Well, I mean, I like to innovate. So, I mean, I don't want to be second. I want to be third. I want to be first. If I have to go through the heartache for everybody else, hallelujah. But I think if you're not first, you're copying the first. And I just like to be first. As they say, the view never changes unless you're the lead dog. Yeah, because otherwise you're just looking at the same. On a sledding team, the dogs are all chained up. Well, other than the lead dog, the view never changes. The dogs behind are just looking at the same thing, which is the first dog's ass.
So obviously, you know a lot about training and training employees and staff. As a business owner, when you're hiring, what's the most important thing to consider when you're developing a training program for your staff? Accountability,
inspect what you expect, and repetition. See, a lot of companies, when they set up a training program, they think, hey, go through this. Okay, they went through it, now what? Well, no, go through it 1,000,000 times. I could sing a song right now, and anybody that watches this video will be able to sing it with me, and it's based on repetition. It's your ABCs, Happy Birthday to You, any of those songs. You know why you know those songs? Because of repetition. They didn't walk in and say, okay, welcome to first grade, here's your alphabet, and then now next day let's move on to arithmetic. You stayed on the same subject over and over. So I think the most important thing a company or an entrepreneur can do to train their people effectively is to make sure that there's repetition and accountability. Some people don't realize that training's uncomfortable. You know, you go to the gym to get abs. I don't know anything about abs, but I've heard it's very uncomfortable to get them. It's uncomfortable to give up that piece of cake. It's uncomfortable to get up early enough to do the work. Well, that's why people with abs, you know, have abs. They're willing to be uncomfortable to get that goal. Training's the same way. Training's uncomfortable. Employees, a lot of times, bitch and moan about training, or they'll say, I've done it. Well, training isn't something you did, it's something you do. So any business owner has to understand that's their business, that's their brand, that's their future. And if you don't insist on implementing a learning culture within your organization, you're going to be operating less than efficiently. High-skilled, well-trained employees makes the difference between, you know, really doing well and just doing all right.
That brings up a good question then. So if training is uncomfortable, is there a trick to motivating employees to want to do the training or to follow through with the training? Have you found some good techniques for that?
The best technique ever is termination.
Okay.
Yeah, because let me tell you something. I mean, people always think I'm joking. We've had, you know, a lot of companies. We've seen a lot of successful implementations, and the best one ever is if you don't train, you don't work here. How about that? And they had 100% adoption. But, you know, the key is they were also the most, you know, one of the most successful groups in their field. If you look at the data, because I look at training data all the time, the number one people on earth train the most. The best athletes, the best teams, the best companies, the best people. They're all reading and learning and growing and training all the time. The highest paid people on the planet are usually a sales commission based or the most highly trained. And even in the sales commission, that's true. So companies are afraid to hold their people accountable. I mean, I've spent a lot of time, money, blood, sweat, and tears building this company. If you come here and you don't want to be trained, you're not interested in growing and improving, well, then I'm not interested in having you on my team. So here, if you don't want to train, you know, go find another job. And if business owners did that more often, training would become normal. Training would become commonplace. And when you got a job somewhere, you would almost expect it. Funny thing is most of the highest level employees that come in here that I've hired have inquired about the training. Like, what training do you provide? Good employees will ask you what kind of training you provide. You know, the ones that say, oh, you know, I don't need to train, those are the ones that won't be there anyway. A lot of companies will spend $50,000 advertising to get people in their door, but they won't invest in training. You know, $1,000 a month to train everybody on staff to keep them, you know, highly skilled and motivated is chump change. It's the single highest ROI you can make, but people don't value it because it doesn't work very well and they can't measure it. Well, if you trace that back, it doesn't work very well because they're not doing it effectively. They're making people go through once. They're not testing anybody to see if they've actually retained the information, and they don't hold them accountable to the information. So anyway, I'll ramble about that for days, man. Train your people.
I mean, it's an important topic. And so here's a good question then. Does it ever make sense for you to do internal training, or should you always be looking for a company that's what they do and they can do it better than you?
No, I mean, you have to have a blend. I mean, there's nobody that can teach my people here my philosophies better than me. You know, internally, we teach culture, we teach, you know, various things, but, you know, I'm not an expert on sexual harassment, so I just hire a sexual harassment expert. Or, you know, if our sales techniques need to be modified or motivational, you know, I'll get Eric Thomas, Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins, some of our clients. We assign training from our clients left and right. It's a blend, just like it shouldn't necessarily all be online. You can train live. The problem with live is that there's no repetition and most times no accountability. So what you do is you train live to answer questions, and then you put them on a virtual or an online system to get the repetition and the accountability. So a blended approach is best, and that works the same with content. You're going to want some of your own stuff, and you're going to want some of other people's stuff.
Okay. I think that brings up a good question, too. Do you think that web-based and virtual training are going to be the gold standard of the future for everything, like even college?
Well, the gold standard will only be if you're on the Lightspeed VT platform, because everything else out there is kind of antiquated, because it's built by techies and they're not looking to cater to the user experience. So no plug intended. The gold standard will be Lightspeed, or it already is. But I think what you're asking is, do I think online learning or web-based learning is going to grow and be what everyone does? I think yes, because it's more efficient, it's more scalable, it's less money, it's more effective. It's just a better mousetrap. But I don't think live training will go away, and it shouldn't. I think there'll be a bigger and bigger blend, but studies show that the online learning industry will increase by 300% in the next 5 years.
I know we do a lot of our training online, and we also go to conferences, we also talk to people, we also do live, obviously. But I do see, as the virtual reality becomes more prevalent, we're actually working with companies doing virtual reality medical training now, where it reinforces, patients and the different things they can go through and some of their concepts, which was something I wouldn't have even considered possible, but probably thanks to people like you, we're going to see a lot more of that. So I was just curious if it was going to be if in your opinion, it was going to be a dominating force.
It's going to be where if you don't have a virtual training system, I call it virtual, online learning, whatever, it's the same thing to me, but if you don't have a web-based learning system, you're eventually going to go out of business by the people who do.
I think that's absolutely true. So let's take a little bit of a shift from that part of your business to your marketing, because I think you do some really creative marketing and you have a lot of good content. How important is it to be creative with your marketing and not just do the standard thing? Because you obviously kind of go outside the box with a lot of your video content and a lot of your online content. How has that paid off for you? Do you think that's really important, or do you think being real is more important and you can kind of be boring as long as you're yourself?
No, people don't like boring. You'd have to give me some examples, because I'm not sure what it is I'm doing that's so creative.
Well, if I watch your videos, people will come in and there's filters behind them where they're in different planets, and all of a sudden a movie clip will pop in next to them, and you're picking up different themes that you're working with other people, obviously, in a lot of these videos. But the video editing techniques you're doing, we're not seeing a lot of, I don't see a lot of that, at least. You see a lot of people that are, switching angles once in a while, but it's just that one person talking. You disappear and the person you're talking with reappears behind you. And, just some things that you don't see a lot of people do. And even some of the topics, I think you talked about beards in one, that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, that you're talking about the Bottom Line series I have. Well, the Bottom Line are basically 2-minute opinions, but they're not opinions. They're the bottom line on whatever subject you want. Trump, pickup lines, money, investing, success, motivation, beards, anything you want to know about. By the way, you can send in what you want my bottom line on, and I'll film one. Matter of fact, I was just filming 2 before we jumped on here. But the special effects, I guess you would say, or the editing that goes into them, is because I have a staff of editors. So most people don't. So, they hold up their phone or turn on their camera, and they have a little bit of editing talent, so they lightly edit it and put it out there. But in some cases, I just hold up my phone and make a video. If you go to my Instagram, you might see a Bottom Line clip on there just to share it there. But most of the content is just holding up my phone and talking. Regardless of whether you have editors or not, you just want to make it interesting. You want to try to show an interesting life, which, by the way, even if you don't get any followers and it doesn't have any benefit, the benefit is you'll have an interesting life. Think about it. If I held up, me sitting there eating a sandwich, watching television for 20 minutes, everyone's going to be like, what's going on? So literally every day I think, what's interesting today? Oh, there's a customer. That's interesting. Let me talk to the customer. The bottom lines are interesting because most people are afraid to give the perspective I give or keep it real like I do. and people are finding it interesting. And what's funny is, we're getting, thousands of views on videos that really might offend some people, when in reality, nobody's offended. They're all liking it, which is crazy, because on some of them I dropped them to get a little bit, I wanted to get a little controversy, and all thumbs up, everybody liking it.
Let me ask you a question about that. A lot of marketers will tell you with your content to be very specific, actually, to your target audience. Obviously, you're approaching some broad, holistic, concepts there. And is that more about you putting out your real brand there when you're doing that? Like, is this about your personal brand, or are you expecting or utilizing that effectively to bring people into your online business as well?
People don't usually follow businesses, so people follow people. I don't follow Virgin America or Virgin Airlines. I follow Richard Branson. So I'm establishing myself as a brand, or a person. Really, I'm not a brand, but people say that. I'm just establishing my life, and I think by doing that, they're going to say, "Who is this guy?" Well, he owns Lightspeed. What's Lightspeed? It's a natural progression to what it is you do, but I don't connect them. I mean, when I'm on as Brad Lee, that's me, my life, and what's in it, and that's it. It does, however, start connecting to real life. I've had a lot of deals happen because they saw me on social media, they liked what I had to say, they started looking me up, realized I started and founded the most, innovative training platform there is, started looking into that. Next thing you know, they came and became a customer. So social media and especially Facebook, I think, is a must. And nobody wants to see, a company. They want to see people. So that was a long way of saying, I don't connect them.
Well, I was just curious because, like the example you gave, like a Richard Branson, his persona is adventure, and Virgin Airlines and Virgin products are adventure. Like your Steve Jobs was, he was ingenuity and different, and that kind of connected to Apple. Yours is kind of, this is me, and these are all the things I want to talk about. I just was curious if that was to build your training platform to say, hey, on our virtual training platform, we can do everything, or were you building a personal brand that was just your personal brand, so you could do other things?
Well, again, more the latter. It's just for me. I'll talk about anything I want to talk about. I'll give any opinion people want to know of me, and it has nothing to do with the company. However, it is driving business to the company, so it wasn't intentional. Like Brad Lee's social media, I'm just trying to do my social media, and I'm trying to give out information and nuggets so a lot of the millennials don't make the same mistakes I do. I'm right in the middle of writing a book called The Hard Way. And basically it's, should I learn the hard way so you don't have to? Because I didn't do the smart thing. I didn't, read books and find mentors and apply what they've taught. I did it on my own. I was, too cool. So I thought I knew everything, which I didn't. And I had to go out and bloody my knuckles and get a fat lip and do it the hard way. And now I guess entrepreneurs or entrepreneurialism nowadays is kind of the cool thing to do. So I put a lot of that social media out there to try and help those that are forging into the entrepreneurial world so they don't have to do it the hard way like I did. Because, the smart ones, you learn from other people's mistakes. You don't have to make them yourself.
That was actually exactly what I was curious about, was being yourself also directing business, which obviously it is. Because a lot of people will tell you not to do it that way. So, you're an interesting case study of doing the opposite of what a lot of people will tell you. That's why I was asking that question. So that's great.
It's funny because one time we had an employee that was questioning some things at the office, and so our HR director said, "Read the handbook," which caused me to go read the handbook. And I'm like, "Who wrote this handbook?" And it was all corporate-y, like we got it from IBM or something. And I said, we need a better handbook. So I spent 3 days at home over the weekend, and I wrote every word in the handbook. And the first word of the handbook is sub. But it says, we fly in the face of conventional wisdom, because a lot of times that conventional wisdom is wrong. Just because they do it doesn't mean it makes it right. And most people follow conventional wisdom. And if you look at the stats, how many people make it? How many people are successful? They always talk about the 1%. Well, why isn't there more? I mean, it's conventional wisdom, for Pete's sake.
Well, the other side is if you're doing that, you're competing with everyone else doing the same exact thing. We actually, the gentleman we talked to before you was John Carter, and he's a trading expert in the stock market. And he said everyone's reading the same books, everyone's using the same techniques. He's like, and the pros know that, so when they look for a movement, they know how to knock out all those people that are trying to practice that, the conventional wisdom when it comes to trading. So he's like, if you can go a little bit outside that and prepare for that and be aware of that, he's like, you'll actually find more success that way now. With this out there. So, great advice. I mean, similar concept.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, I think in most cases, I agree. In some cases, conventional wisdom is, something to consider. Again, you don't ever want to throw away advice. You want to process it, see if it applies to you and your situation, and apply it when necessary. There's a lot of conventional wisdom that I do take, like, don't rob banks. There's good advice out there where you don't need to be the pioneer, but you'll usually, ask any pioneer in any industry, and they're the ones, with the arrows in their back. The pioneers get the arrows, the settlers get the land. So sometimes it's not fair, but I would highly recommend you fly in the face of conventional wisdom most times.
No, I think that's great. We have another presenter at the conference that talks about his concept is think wrong. Essentially don't be afraid to think wrong or what other people believe you're wrong for the same concepts. All the pioneers, everyone told them they were crazy. Everyone told them they were wrong. A lot of them, I mean, we know in history, like some people were literally killed or, ostracized for a concept that now we all believe is perfectly correct. But in their time, nobody could accept. So I think that's great advice. One thing I'd really like to ask you about, you're obviously really good at building strategic partnerships. You bring, as you said, a lot of people on your show. You do videos with celebrities. You've used that to leverage your personal brand really, really well. What's your strategy for creating those kind of strategic partnerships for growing your brand?
I wish I had some genius answer. I don't really have a strategy. Again, I'm lucky in the fact that I get to interact and hang around a lot of successful, powerful, people, including celebrities. And so I like to take advantage of opportunities. I mean, they're in my office. Hey, let me throw a video together to teach somebody something, or let me get their opinion on something. And so I'll just throw it on social media. Also, a little bit of strategy. If I feature, for example, Tony Robbins in a video, there's a lot of people who love Tony Robbins. So Tony plays it for his people, and then people are exposed to me. So they have a chance to say, hey, I like that guy. He's real. Of course, it's backfired too, where someone said, who's that idiot? So whatever.
Well, you call it luck, but obviously if you're in the right places to meet those right people, there's something to that, whether it's just you being real yourself and it happening. So for example, how do you get to be on a video with Tony Robbins? Was it just through your training, company, or did something lead up to those kind of connections?
Well, I would ask everybody in the world, do you know Tony Robbins? Because I need to show them my system. If I show them my system, we'll make a deal. So eventually someone knew Tony Robbins. And so they got me a 5-minute meeting at his hotel room while he was in San Francisco. And that 5 minutes turned into an hour and a half. And then I flew down to his new place in Florida and closed him. A lot of people say, I'm the guy that closes the guys that teach you how to close.
Well, and obviously, I think you just explained it. That wasn't luck. That was perseverance. You went out and said, I got to find this guy. Somebody help me find this guy, and you made it happen. So,
yeah, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. I mean, I sought him out and didn't stop. It wasn't lucky that I got to him. It was work how I got to him. So again, a lot of people, say, well, that guy's lucky or that girl's lucky. Man, come on. No. Although I'd rather be lucky than good. I don't think luck is a consistent thing to rely upon. Hard work is, though, or actually smart work. Again, I don't really work hard. I work smart. But when people are starting a business, if they can rely on luck, good for them. But it's not luck. It's ingenuity and work.
Absolutely. I think we have time for probably one more question. So you're the second person in this conference to talk. Well, you haven't talked about it, but you used reinvention to really find your success. You started off with a program. You had your lease training program for teaching people how to sell cars better, and you realized you needed a better platform, which was an offshoot of your original business, and that's really what you've developed to run with. As a business owner, how do you figure out when it's time to kind of reinvent your business, and how do you decide which angle of that? Because I'd assume you had a lot of other options besides saying, "Hey, I'm going to develop the most, take this ingenuity and develop this way ahead of its time platform that nobody else has ever seen." You could have gone a different way with your training program. What made you decide to go that way, and how do you know when it's time to look somewhere else to really grow?
Well, when I was born, I was born in a bucket of common sense. Like, my common sense is like 10 times normal of anybody else. So the common sense told me to do it. I mean, when you go out and you start trying to train people live and you're getting paid to do it, and it's not working very well, common sense tells you to find a better way. You don't just keep doing it. So I built the platform for myself just out of necessity, just out of common sense. I mean, this live stuff isn't giving me the repetition. I'm not able to test every one of them. I leave, and then the people that were half trained are training new people because they weren't even hired when I was there. So it was just common sense that this live training stuff doesn't work as well, and I need to find a solution. So it was just common sense. But to make adjustments, I think you need to listen to the data. There's a lot of bad advice out there. There's a lot of cliche memes, all kinds of things like, never give up, which I understand, never give up, never stop. However, sometimes you need to stop, and sometimes you need to give up, because if I would have tried to do the same thing over and over and never gave up, I would be really out of business and still trying to be whatever that was. I would have been out of business. So the cliche of never give up, man, do give up. You have to listen to the data, watch what's going on around you. Open your eyes, look and see what's happening. If nobody wants your product, it might be data to alter or change your direction, your product, your presentation, your value proposition. Like, change it, make adjustments. I'm not saying stop your entrepreneurial dream or give up on the product. Look at the data and figure out what's the problem. Why is this happening? And then analyze that data, use a lot of common sense, and just make adjustments. One of my 5 factors to success, I called them, is the first thing you got to do is take a chance. The second thing you have to be is a good problem solver, because you're going to have a lot of problems, and the better you are at solving problems, the better you are. I don't personally call them problems. I like to call them challenges, because they're not really problems. They're challenges. And I make them more like a game, which is a technique I use to get through problems without getting discouraged. I make it like a game. And then make adjustments. The third one's make adjustment. Fourth one's train your ass off. Fifth one's never give up. So again, that never give up gets out there, and people think it means never stop, when that's not necessarily what it means. It means never give up trying to reach your goal, but it doesn't mean be so myopic that you are missing data that's coming at you. The third one, make adjustments, is funny, because I was doing a speech for some chiropractors, and when I said make adjustments, they were like, pretty much, that's perfect for them, isn't it?
Well, I think you had actually one of the last conferences I went to, one of the co-founders of Netflix spoke, and it's actually your exact concept. And the one takeaway I had from him, he said, focus on solving the problem, not on the product you've created. And he's like, if you do that, you'll find success. So just like you did, you were trying to figure out how to solve that problem, but you weren't married to that initial product. And I think that's exactly what your process is don't give up on solving that problem, but don't get married to your initial solution or the second solution. And that's where I think a lot of business owners and people that have that spirit of ingenuity make that mistake, is whatever their first answer is. I think Netflix, he said their first idea was to mail VHS tapes. And when they really started, and they looked at it and they're like, well, this isn't practical. And then somebody found a CD, and they heard about the DVD, and he said they mailed themselves a CD, and it arrived the next day, and they're like, okay, well, maybe now we could do something, but they went from there. The first year, 99% of their sales was from people buying movies, and they said, well, if we're going to be online rental, we got to kill that. And it was interesting. He said it's reality hits you real hard when you shut down 99% of your sales in one day just because you're focused on the thing you want to do. But obviously that worked for them. So I think your system, that's really what it's about. And that's an important point. Focus on solving that problem. Don't ever give up on that, but don't be afraid to give up on your solution that you initially came up with if it's not working.
Oh, well, Netflix is famous for making adjustments. Blockbuster, not so much.
He had a great story about their meeting, actually. If you ever have time, look it up, where they went to the first meeting and basically got laughed out of the room. And that was after they rented Vanna White's private jet, apparently, because that was the only way they could get there. And they were coming from a retreat in shorts and sandals. So they were like, of course we walk in and there's 12 corporate lawyers all looking at us like we're idiots because here's two guys in sandals that just flew in on Vanna White's jet. But he said they left the meeting, and he's like, that's really too bad because now we're going to have to kick their ass. And he's like, and here 10 years later, he's like, look what we're doing, kind of a thing. So
oh, yeah, I love the Netflix story. Love it.
No, that's great. Well, this has been really great.
Blockbuster could have purchased that.
Yeah. Well, no, that was the meeting he was talking about. They offered to sell for $50 million, and Blockbuster laughed him out of the room. That was the exact meeting he was telling a story about. He's like, we went in and we asked for $50 million, and they were like, get out of here. And he's like, if they'd only known then, so...
Well, that's what I mean by you have to listen to the data. I mean, Blockbuster was so big, so cool, that they're not listening to the data. They're not listening to the public. They're not listening to their consumers. Listen to everything that's going on. That's the data. Listen to it. And most importantly, put yourself in the consumer's shoes. I mean, if Blockbuster lawyers would have said, do I want a VHS tape mailed to me? Do I want to drive down to the store or press a button? The answers are obvious if you're listening.
No, that's great advice. And this has all been actually really great. Thank you very much for your time. I'm sure everyone here got a lot out of it. For the people that want to keep following you or find out more about your training business, probably a lot of business owners would probably like to learn more about that. Where should we send them?
Well, if you want the best training system on earth, go to lightspeedvt.com. If you want to follow me, you go to The Real Brad Lea, that's LEA, on any of the social medias. And, that's where you find me. I'm just messing around, putting up videos, trying to give out lessons and things to avoid people having to make mistakes. I have one meme that's coming out, I believe in Forbes, that said, it's not a meme, it's just a quote that I said once. It says, it's only lonely at the top if you don't help anyone else get there. So I don't want to be lonely up there. I want to help everybody else get there with me. So it's one big party when we get there.
That's a great point. And this has been great. And thank you very much for your time and all the great advice for everyone. It was great talking to you.
My pleasure, man.